So this video is my first impressions of the Canon EOS R10. I think this camera, the EOS R10, is of better value to most people out there than the R7. Here's why. Hey guys, welcome. My name is Belal Khan, marketing by profession, media by passion. In this video, before we get into why the Canon EOS R10 is actually probably the best value camera that's available right now, I want to talk about what are the things that I would look for in the perfect ideal camera, at least from the things that I find of value. Number one has to do with portability, right? Will this camera, or rather will not necessarily this camera, but whatever camera that I am considering, will it fit into my sling, my shoulder sling? The reason I'm asking that is because if I have a camera, I want to be able to go out with it. And to my surprise, I thought because it had a viewfinder, right, it fits in just fine. I thought because it has a viewfinder, I would not be able to fit it properly. Now, one of the things though I am considering is getting one of those peak design things where you can take the camera and you just put it right, like something like this, on your person with whatever bag or that you might have. So this way it's actually easier. You don't even have to put it in your bag. You get easy access to the camera whenever you want to take a shot or something. Number one thing I value is portability. Number two is whether or not the camera is recording gyroscopic data, the 3D telemetry. I think that's what it's called. Now, the gyro data is not recorded in any Canon camera as of right now, to my knowledge. I think it has the ability to, but I don't think it's one of those things that it transfers to the file itself. Sony does, Blackmagic Design does, Insta360 does, GoPro does. The downside is with Sony, there's going to be a lot of artifacts and there's going to be a lot of jelloing, at least through Catalyst Browse. If you want to be able to do the same thing with any other camera, in this case the EOS R10 or any other Canon camera, what you need to do is you simply have to mount a GoPro or Insta360. What I've done here is I've just got this UU rig type of thing with a cell phone holder, and I put the Insta360 1-inch edition essentially on top of it. It doesn't matter which edition you have, as long because it's the body that's going to be recording the 3D telemetry, if that's what it's called, the gyro data. So this way now, when you pull this camera into the footage, you pull it into gyro flow and pair it with the 3D data, motion data that's in the Insta360, it'll be able to stabilize that. Now, you do have to turn up your shutter speed significantly. You know, we're looking at 1/160 or higher, ideally 1/250. You want to eliminate the motion blur so that the stabilization can happen without giving you too much of like this fuzziness in all of the steps that you might take. Something that might have been a downside is actually not a downside anymore because I have no issues putting an Insta360 on there. And the steps that it takes to stabilize is actually just as easy, if not better, using gyro flow. So that's a perk. Whether or not the footage is oversampled. But in the case of the EOS R10, it gives you its 24 megapixel sensor. It will oversample the image from 6K down to 4K. So you're gonna get some really clean images. It's the same thing with regards to slow motion. When you're doing 4K 60, it'll crop in a little bit just to give you that clean image. It's not oversampled anymore. It's pixel to pixel, 1:1 ratio. The Sony also does that, which is it's taking a 24 megapixel image. The Canon EOS M6 Mark II does not do that. And so it's not that big a deal because yeah, it's going to have an effect on the image, but it's not that big of a deal, because if you look at it just by itself, you'll never really concern yourself with whether it's a good image or not. But what I would like in an ideal world is I wish the camera would simply stop oversampling. What do I mean? I mean, I wish the camera would simply give me the straight 6K image. I know the GH6 is big with that. You can get the straight full resolution sensor with image. and and the reason I'm saying this is because if I'm going to stabilize the image in post, I'm going to have to crop in about 10 to maybe 20% max. Now, regardless of however much I'm cropping in, I want to maintain the resolution. And so if I get proper 4K out, well, I'm starting with 4K that's been oversampled, and then it's cropping in, then I got to stretch that. If I get to start with the pure 6K image, then I don't have to worry about that. And I don't know, maybe some image systems cannot handle 6K footage. I think they would. This is a 5 point something K, which is the Insta360 1-inch, all right? And it can play back fine on my 5-year-old laptop. So yeah, just give us a 6K image. That would be ideal. With regards to HDMI, does the camera have a clean HDMI output? Sony does, this EOS M6 Mark II does, and from what I understand, so does the Canon R10. So that's definitely a perk. The difference though has to do with what are your frame rate options. The Sony, whatever frame rate you set it at, that's the frame rate it's outputting to HDMI. However, with this Canon here, it doesn't matter what the frame rate you set at, when you plug it in via HDMI, it's going to output to 30p. So you're kind of stuck with that. With this, however, it seems that you can put this to whatever frame rate and it'll output via HDMI in that frame rate. So, and it's got a, what is it? It is a micro HDMI output. I know a lot of people hate on that, but whatever. I think they do it for the sake of portability. Even this guy has it. I think the only one that I know that defaults to it in this price range is the GH series from Panasonic, which, well, the GH5 specifically. I know the GH4, and before that they did not have full-size HDMI. But that's besides the point. The other factor also has to do with 1 hour plus battery life. Now, one of the things I like about the R10 is that it uses the same batteries as the LPE17, the same batteries as the EOS M6 Mark II. So if you're upgrading, then you can keep using your old batteries, which is wonderful. However, because this is a more resource intensive camera, it tends to also not last as long as it would on the Canon EOS M6 Mark II. So, so you basically get a little bit less battery life. At least that's the impression that I've gotten. But if you have at least 2 batteries on you, that's not a problem. And here's basically the impression that I've had. If I were to use a single battery on a trip, so I leave from my home to get to my destination, on the M6 Mark II, which is this guy right here, it would last the entire trip. However, on the EOS R10, my battery died before I could get to my destination. So that's the thing I'm basing it off of, and it was fully charged before I left. So the other factor also has to do with reliable autofocus. It's Canon. If you have Canon, now this is actually on manual focus so that I can jump in as such, but use of any Canon lenses, going back however many years on the EOS system, whether it's third party, first party, you see, like even on this, it works just fine. I've got myself here a Viltrox 0.71 RF to EF adapter, and I haven't had any issues. The one thing though that I must point out, so normally when you attach a focal reducer to a camera such as this, then what ends up happening is that you get an extra stop of light, but the camera is also going to read out to you, like let's say if it's an f2.8 lens, it'll read f2 when it's wide open. Now it does that on the R10, and let me show you though, if I'm using a Canon lens. But if I put let's say a third-party lens, like in this case, I'm using the Tokina 28-270. Here, let me show you what happens here. So, right, like I'll change it, but then when it goes to it being full, I don't know if you can see that, but it is reading f2.8. So for whatever reason, on this with a third-party lens, it reads f2.8. Is it wide open? It seems that it is. I look at the iris, and it just seems like it's fully wide open. But so I don't know what the deal is. I don't know why it does that. But that's one of the things I just kind of noticed. If you're using a third-party lens with the R10, using the Viltrox focal reducer. Now, if you use the Canon official one or a Metabones, will it do the same thing? I don't know. I don't have those on me. So that's something that maybe if somebody else can kind of test, test out, that would be very much appreciated. It's got oversampled 4K, check. It has faster and reliable autofocus in comparison to the EOS M6 Mark II, check. Does it have a wonderful grip size? Look at this grip. This grip is just amazing, right? So I love it. This is the thing I like about Canon, is that they make really, really great in terms of ergonomics. And this could probably even be the shot here. So I just love the depth of the grip, as you'll notice here. Boom. Like, it fits my hand perfectly. I can one-hand this. If I wanted, I can two-hand it, but I don't have to worry about this thing just kind of coming off or falling out of my hand. So, yeah, this is the great perk of this body. The grip is not as significant on the Sony. It's not and it's pretty much non-existent on the M6 Mark II. The one thing though that I find kind of annoying, just it is one of those things I noticed right off the bat, is the placement of the menu button. It's on this side. Why is it on this side? I just don't understand that. It should be, because if I'm going to use it, this is like if I'm one-handing this thing, right? I should be able to one-hand it from here. Now I'm going to have to now use my other hand, go here, press menu, and then try to access the stuff. And I don't want to do that. I should be able to press menu just with one hand. Just a use case thing. The other thing I also noticed, which I've missed, I really appreciate on this guy, but they took away the dial on so you basically have two dials. You have this dial, which is for I believe the aperture, and you have then you have this other dial, which is for the shutter speed, at least by default when you put the camera in manual mode. But then when you want to go and change your ISO settings, then you simply press the ISO button, and then you can change your ISO. You can use the dial to adjust the ISO, but that's really it. I know the EOS R7 has that, so I'm thinking to myself, because the EOS R7 has a slightly bigger grip and it has a wheel, it might just be worth, to me, to get that over the R10. Is the larger grip, slightly larger grip, and the dial wheel for, I'm assuming is for ISO, is that worth an extra $500, coupled with the additional memory card slot? And instead of a 6K oversampled image, it's a 7K oversampled image. Does any of that play into it being worth an additional $500? I don't know, right? Right now, this camera, as is, the R10, seems like a better value than the EOS M6 Mark II, right? Why do I say that? Well, what are some of the limitations of the EOS M6 Mark II? Well, I'm about to tell you some of these limitations because I've experienced them firsthand. Limitation number one has to do with the 30-minute record limit that one has to deal with. And why don't they give us a firmware update to bypass that? I don't know. Number two major limitation that's an annoyance is the fact that in 4K, it will overheat after about 40 minutes. So even if I hit the 30-minute record limit on this camera, then I press record again, probably within the next 15 to 20 minutes, the camera is going to shut down from overheating, which really doesn't benefit me. So if I want to be able to bypass that, I'm going to connect it to something that'll help me record externally, such as OBS on the computer or maybe an Atomos Ninja 5. But then I am stuck at 30p. Like, my other cameras are not recording in 30p, so why do I have to then record in 30p? So therefore, this camera then becomes a non-starter in an ecosystem of cameras, unless I make all the other cameras conform to this camera, which I don't really want to, right? The other factor is also the grip. I'm not a fan of this tiny grip. My issue with regards to size and portability has to do with its height. This camera fits that bill. Takes wonderful photos. It's fast with regards to their mechanical shutter, high speed, taking pictures of family. But when it comes to the issue of grip and for me to be able to easily hold it, it's not very ergonomically friendly. So these are my issues that I feel like they're all resolved with the Canon. So the Canon EOS R10 addresses all of those issues with regards to there's no record limit. It hasn't really overheated on me yet, but I think it might require a little bit further testing. And the fact that I think if somebody's looking to get a camera today in 2022 of August 2022 and beyond, as a good starting camera, I think the EOS R10 is a great value buy. Lots of affordable lenses are available with reliable quality autofocus, and you would essentially get a clean image out of it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll see you soon.